First up, ladies and gentlemen, GST revenue for March saw the second highest collection ever at 1.78 lakh crore, seeing 11.5% year-on-year growth. This surge was driven by a significant rise in GST collection from domestic transactions at 17.6%. Also in a first, the yearly transactions through UPI or the Unified Payment Interface crossed 100 billion in the financial year. The UPI posted a record 57% rise in volume compared to the previous financial year, and there's been a deeper entrenchment of UPI with increased use of the platform for even small ticket items. Meanwhile, Maruti Suzuki, Tata Motors, Mahindra & Mahindra have all reported higher car sales in the month of March, wrapping up the fiscal 2024 at record levels. The numbers are seen as a key indicator of private consumption in Bharat. Wholesale sales of passenger vehicles reached an all-time high, totaling more than 42 lakh units. In a major anti-insurgency operation, 9 Naxalites were killed in an encounter with security personnel in the Bijapur district of Chhattisgarh. Bijapur district also comes under the Bastar Lok Sabha constituency that will go to polls in the first phase of the general elections on the 19th of April. Let's set up debate number 1, ladies and gentlemen. Expansionist, belligerent and a provocateur. Those words can best describe the PLA-CCP-led Chinese regime and the policies it has been adopting in the rise. The rise of Bharat in the global sphere, pushing Beijing into a corner, clearly has had an effect on the decisions it also sometimes makes. Last month, following a visit by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the state to inaugurate infrastructure projects, that is Arunachal Pradesh, China has said that it was opposed to his activities in that region. Bharat termed the arguments baseless and questioned China's locus standi. Also, the US also weighed in on the matter, saying it recognized Arunachal Pradesh as an integral territory of Bharat and strongly opposed any unilateral attempts to make claims on it by military or civilian incursion or encroachments. But Beijing just doesn't seem to care or learn. In yet another bid to assert its claim on Arunachal Pradesh, China has released a fourth list of 30 new names of various places along the line of actual control. They are trying to rename. China is claiming it has made those changes in accordance with the relevant regulations on place name management of the State Council. The new list of places renamed by China includes 11 residential areas, 12 mountains, 4 rivers, 1 lake, 1 mountain pass and a piece of land. The names have Chinese characters, Tibetan Pinyin, the Roman alphabet version of Mandarin Chinese. The ministry also included detailed latitude and longitude and a high resolution map. Now, this is the fourth time the CCP-led Chinese government and the authorities have actually unilaterally renamed places in Bharat's sovereign territory, that is Arunachal Pradesh. Beijing released the first list of the so-called standardized names of 6 places in Arunachal in 2017. This was done after the Dalai Lama's visit to Arunachal Pradesh. The second list of 15 places were released in 2021. South Tibet was marked on the new standardized maps. Then in 2023, 11 places, including a town near Arunachal's capital Itanagar, was named by China in their own new map. And now Beijing has renamed 30 places in this year as part of their concerted propaganda. Bharat has outrightly rejected China's renaming of these 30 places. The move has been completely senseless, has been deemed completely senseless, and Delhi has been very, very firm in its stance. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Shankar leading the charge against China when he scoffed at these attempts, and he asked if naming someone's house as yours would actually make it yours. He asserted that Arunachal Pradesh belongs to Bharat and renaming it does not change anything. Then Union Minister Kiran Rijiju, an MP from the state, said China was used to meek Indian government in the past and this government's strong border policy has irritated the nation. He said baseless claims by Beijing weren't going to change historical facts that prove that Arunachal is an inalienable part of Bharat. The Chief Minister of Arunachal Pradesh, Pema Khandu, dismissed this as a gimmick by China, reaffirming that citizens and patriots of the state will reject such antics. Former Foreign Secretary Harsh Singla reiterated that the state will always be a part of Bharat. And we're looking forward to Dr. Harsh Singla joining us later in this broadcast here on The Right Stand. But first up, Bharat is not the only nation where China has tried its cartographical misadventures. Nepal is upset with China's new map because it does not include several areas that Nepal claims as its own sovereign territory. China has not laid any claims on Nepal's territory, but instead it doesn't recognize areas which are incorporated by Nepal into the official Nepali map in May 2020. China has staked claim over 764 kilometers of Bhutan. Since 2020, the Chinese have also raised an additional claim in eastern Bhutan. The Philippines has rejected China's map because of its inclusion of a dashed line around the contested areas of the South China Sea that was subject to an international tribunal ruling in 2016 that found in favor of Manila. Vietnam has protested against China's claims over the Paracel and Spratly Islands. The island nation has maintained that it violates its sovereignty and jurisdiction over its waters. Taiwan has rejected the 9-dash line and Beijing's South China Sea claims. Taiwan Foreign Ministry spokesperson has said that Taiwan was absolutely not a part of the People's Republic of China. Indonesia too has raised the banner of revolt. The Natuna Islet cluster, located within the country's 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone, is claimed by China within its 10-dash line over the South China Sea. All of these nations are upset with China's cartographical misadventures. Why is this cartographic aggression being undertaken by the PLA regularly on a regular basis? What good comes of it? And is there something that we can do as a nation? Is there something that we can also take a step in a direction to talk to the Chinese in the same language that they understand? Ashok Sajjanar, former diplomat with us, Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow of the ORF with us, Dr. Roger Liu, Associate Professor, Flame University with us, and Andrew K. Piliung, China Strategist with us. Namaste to everybody. Thank you very much. Roger Liu, let me first ask you, sir, how would you see this cartographic adventurism, Dr. Liu? Is there a thought process behind this?
Well, I think China has been prepared this for a long time. Because before you are taking some invasive strategy or tactics, you will have to justify it. You will have to persuade the people from the inside of China that actually you own this place. So renaming of different places is actually the best way, because this is a way to legitimize your ownership of these places. So I think China has been prepared to take more actions towards this, because as we have been warned, China has been flexing its military missiles in different parts of the continent. So they're aiming at Japan, they're aiming at Taiwan, and they're aiming at India as well. So, if you remember recently, Jamil Sharma has visited India, and he has raised a warning that if China really wants to attack Taiwan, China will also try to take back some part of its claimed territory as well. So actually, China has a long plan of conquering different places. After conquering Taiwan, it will move on to India, and then to the Russian border, and then to the Senkaku Islands, and then other places as it grows stronger. So I think it's very important for the Quad allies to understand China's ambition and try to curb it before it happens further. So that's very important. This is something that we have to notice.
So it's not just a cartographic misadventure. There is a deeper game to it. You continue to release maps, continue to claim territory, and eventually move into that territory saying it is always part of ours because this is what the map said. Ambassador Ashok Sajjanar, what should Bharat do?
Well, thank you very much, Anand, for having me on your show. I think this is, in my view, what China is doing. It's a very sinister design. And it's a well thought out process that if it is a well-known saying that if you keep on repeating a falsehood, keep on repeating a lie, then after some time people start believing in it, thinking that it is true, that it is correct. And this is what China seems to be doing by repeating its claim over and over again and saying, that this is what we have always it has always belonged to us, and that's what they are talking about Arunachal Pradesh. This is something similar to the 9-line that they have put in the South China Sea. But your question, Anand, I think it's a very valid one. What should India do, and what should the other countries also do? I think we have seen what Philippines has done. Of course, when the Permanent Court of Arbitration award was given in July 2016, then the leadership being what it was, they decided to do nothing. But now they have woken up to it and they are pushing back against China. So I think as far as India is concerned, definitely India has a large number of options, possibilities. And I would say that the first of them would be in terms of strengthening its ties and broadening, deepening its relations with Taiwan. You see, it is a win-win situation as far as both India and Taiwan are concerned. India has not been doing it. It has not been going, so to say, full throttle in that direction, because it has been mindful and it has been sensitive to what Chinese concerns are, what Chinese concerns would be. And we do not wish to be provocative. But I think we have seen over the last many years, Anand, whether it is as far as, supporting Pakistan in the area of terrorism, putting these technical holds, vetoes on designation of terrorists, which have been carrying out terrorist attacks against India, or it is standing in the way of India's membership of the NSG, or standing in the way of India's membership, permanent membership of the UN Security Council, etc. And now, of course, as you mentioned very clearly here, that this is the fourth time that it is, China.
See, Ambassador Sajanar, there is something that I'd like to ask you. Here's what we have done on news18.com, and I'd just like to see if we can call that map out here right behind me. If China is going to rename places, let us then very clearly, cartographically expose China for its own territorial claims. Can we have slug number 24 back on air, please? Yes. Yeah. And quickly, let's try and look at this map, ladies and gentlemen. Here, these are the regions. This is actually the size of China, the actual size of China. It's quite shrunk. Most of this is all occupied territory or claimed territory. This is the new territory. Xinjiang itself means the new territory. So why not highlight Xinjiang separately? And this dispute is over the entire surrender to China, or the so-called surrender to China. The next area that comes out is Tibet. This is supposed to be claimed as autonomous region. Chinese autonomous region CAT, or Chinese occupied territory COT. Why should we say it? We should very clearly just call this Tibet, and all of the Tibet, Upper Tibet, Middle Tibet and Lower Tibet should be highlighted separately and called out separately. And the third is the Inner Mongolia region. The entire Inner Mongolia region, China has taken claim and declared an autonomous region of China. Let's call it Inner Mongolia, because it is Inner Mongolia. There has been a demographic claim or cleansing of the Inner Mongolians altogether, and it's been done quietly so. There is a similar act that is happening in East Turkestan or Xinjiang. So why not call this out? Here on news18.com, we have very clearly highlighted these areas separately. Let's try and openly say it, sir. And the other aspect is, this is the first step towards rejecting this entire one China narrative. Ambassador Sajanar, why shouldn't we do it?
No, absolutely. I think we should do it. And, it'll be, to begin with, it'll be, I think, a little difficult for the government to come out and say that in so many words. But I think, like you said very correctly, News 18 has done that. And I think many other, whether it is media houses, TV channels, private TV channels, newspapers, think tanks, academia, etc. Definitely there can be a move that can be built, because you have logic on your side, Anand. I fully agree with you. I fully subscribe to what you say, that these are all recently acquired territories. Whether Xinjiang till 1949, when China became an independent country, the PRC, Xinjiang was under the control of Russia. And before that, it has been under, Turkish rule. It has for very shorter durations, it has been under the Chinese suzerainty. So I think whether it is Inner Mongolia or it is Xinjiang or it is Tibet, I think definitely this is a move that can be taken forward. As I said, it could be started first by private channels, private think tanks, etc. But that is a movement should really be built up. But there are other options also. I was mentioning one about Taiwan, the other is about reaching out in a much more proactive manner to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, which China is so anxious and concerned about. And there are other possibilities, and I think we can weigh them even at the level of the government as to what the government also needs to do to push back, because what China is doing is also being done at the level of the government. It's not being done only at the level of the private entities or private institutions. Anand.
Sushant Sareen?
Yeah, look, at one level, you could say that the Chinese are extremely puerile and petulant, in addition to being very belligerent. And frankly, they have this tendency of riling up people. But I agree with what Professor Liu was saying, that they're trying to establish a claim, and that may be 10, 15, 20, 50 years down the line. They'll say, but we've always claimed that this is our part. So they manufacture their own maps. In fact, Anand, let me relate to you. We'd gone to some place in China, I'm forgetting Hainan or some place. They'd kept an atlas out there on the basis of which they were claiming the entire South China Sea, and were insisting that, this is an ancient map. Now, in that same atlas which they had kept, we saw a map of Kashmir. All of Kashmir was in Indian territory in that same damn atlas.
Yeah.
Right? He said, then why are you in, if one map is right in this atlas and it is like the holy grail for you, then why is the other map not right? They remove the atlas. So, this is the kind of fraud these Chinese play. But I think we should stop calling China China. We should call it East Tibet, or call it Western Japan, or call it Northern Taiwan. Okay, and to say that why do we need to do it at the private level and not at the governmental level, either don't do it at all, or do it at the governmental level. Now, if your government, and this is a part of the problem with our diplomacy, we've always tried to appease the other side, always tried, quote unquote, as Ambassador Sajjanar was saying, we don't want to be provocative. What are the Chinese doing? Are they not being provocative? And we don't want to be provocative. Now, if you don't want to be provocative, you don't want to do certain things, then don't have this debate. Then, just lump it. But otherwise, you have to push back. And I completely agree with you. We should, I think it has become a kind of a tacit Indian government policy that we don't talk about one China anymore. And we should. And we should try and convince as many countries as possible to not talk about one China anymore. But just because we don't talk about one China is not enough. Okay, I agree with what Ambassador Sajjanar is saying. We should have closer ties with Taiwan. Why not? For example, we don't even send ministerial visits to Taiwan. Why? Why not? Other countries can send. What is our problem? So I think there has to be a certain degree of more forceful way of dealing with these Chinese and putting them in their place, because suddenly it's like that poor man who suddenly becomes very rich and it goes to his head. That's what the Chinese are all about. They're very small people, if you look at it. They don't have that vision. They don't have they don't have that depth of vision that to say that, okay, fine, we've done well for ourselves and let's take the rest of the world along with us. No, they want to capture everybody. This goddamn middle kingdom complex which they have, who cares about what their middle kingdom is? What is the originality that the Chinese bring to the table? Please name one original thing that the Chinese have contributed in the last 500 years. One. And these guys are unnecessarily trying to, push everybody in the wrong way. I don't think it's acceptable. It should not be acceptable.
It is not acceptable, Sushant Sareen, but the point is that a former ambassador on our panel, with all respects to him, is actually saying, let's not make it an official position, let's do it privately. Let private institutions start doing it, whereas it's an official statement that is an official map that is coming in from the PLA and the CCP. So they are making everything official about it. In
Anand,
Bharat, we are being a little cagey and we are saying, let's not make it official. Let's just do it in undertones. Let's just do it on news platforms and debates, but let's not make it a diplomatic issue. No,
Anand,
Ambassador,
that is not correct.
Sir,
Yeah.
no disrespect meant to you, sir, but I'm just saying, how long will we as a nation continue to say, let's not provoke, let's not poke the bear?
Give me a chance. Give me a chance. Yeah. You know what I have said is, Anand, for you and also for Serene, that there are many things that the government can do. And in that, strengthening relations and ties with Taiwan is one of those that the government should do. I'm not saying that everything, needs to be done at the private level. My comment about doing at the private level was only with respect to what News 18 has done. Also, as far as reaching out to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, it is the government should do that. So, I think we need to have a very prudent thinking and a very, careful thinking as to what do we do. And, it makes perfect sense that we should have good relations with Taiwan. We have not been doing it so far. But right now, seeing what China is doing and what China has been doing in other spheres also, there is no cause for us not, to be mindful of their sensitivities and do something which will provoke them, because they are doing everything which provokes us. And I mentioned a large number of cases, so there is no cause for us not also to be upfront about it.
No, sir, here is a difference, sir. We may call it Chinese aggression, misadventurism. Andrew K.P. Leung has not yet spoken. Sushant Sareen wants to make an intervention. Then I'll come to you, Mr. Leung. Thank you for your patience. But we have to credit the CCP and the PLA for to get, and they make no bones about it. Why is it that, a CCP and a PLA can get away with this kind of adventurism, this kind of browbeating, but other nations are tepid in their response, or how they would, you're strongly defending, but you're not aggressive in your posture to go back and say, listen, this is how you are, this is who you are. You are Xinjiang here, you are Inner Mongolia there, you are Tibet, this is all of Tibet. And I will continue to call this Tibet and not Chinese territory or Chinese autonomous territory. Why should we call it CAT? This is occupied territory. This is Tibet. We recognize our borders with Tibet, not with China. Because China is far away sandwiched in between all these three regions. Yes, Sushant Sareen.
Okay, so I was going to make one point, but let me make two very quick points. One, yes, I agree with you. And I wonder, can't the government of India, when we publish official maps, we can publish a map of the kind you have shown?
Yeah.
We show China and we show Tibet. The problem has been our diplomacy. We like to imagine, or at least, and this is not directed at Ambassador Sajjanar, but maybe some of his colleagues. It's been our approach that, look, if you be nice to somebody, the other person will also be nice to you. The other person will also be nice to you. The worst thing you can do in diplomacy is to be nice to someone, because no good deed in diplomacy goes unpunished. So, for example, we are seeing this fracas over this island with Sri Lanka. We gave it away because we wanted to be nice. Little realizing that just 2 years before we gave away this island, the Sri Lankans were actually backing the Pakistanis and giving them overflight rights.
Yes.
Okay. All the Pakistani supplies were going through Sri Lanka when the 1971 war was to take place. Number one. Number two, so we tend to be very expansive, that we will do this, after that everything will be hunky-dory. We will give back Haji Pir Pass to the Pakistanis, which was won with a lot of blood and daring and courage by our generals,
yes,
and young officers actually at that point of time. We signed it off. Why? Because we thought we'll buying peace. This concept of constantly trying to buy peace by trying to appease the other side, I think it's run its course. And it's about time that we stop doing these kind of gestures like an imperial power, like we used to do, because we had an imperial family, behaving like an imperial power. I think it's about time we stop doing this kind of nonsense.
And not just that, till the time we get stronger, we have the kind of economic might and heft that we can sit across the table as an equal and then stare the other person down, we have to learn to defend ourselves aggressively. Andrew K.P. Leung, why would China resort to this kind of map adventurism? Is there a greater strategy towards this? Thank you for your patience, sir.
Thank you for allowing me to allowing me to speak. First of all, I think that we should pay attention to the United Nations Charter. All these thinker pointing, chest thumping is not going to get us anywhere. So we should abide by the United Nations Charter. The United Nations does not recognize Taiwan as a country, as recognize there is only one China, including Taiwan. So I think that no point arguing about that. The same applies to Tibet and also Xinjiang, which is recognized by the United Nations as part of China. But where the United Nations Charter is not clear in the terms of territorial disputes, as between India and China on a number of fronts, we should really look at what the history behind it. Now, as far as the Arunachal Pradesh is concerned, it all can be traced back to 1913 and 1914, the so-called Mahon Line of British India. Now, the British India, of course, at that time entered into that part of the territory and established arbitrarily the so-called Mahon Line. Of course, subsequently, independent India recognized that, and then later on led to the establishment of this Arunachal Pradesh as part of Indian territory. But that the claim has never been recognized by China all these years. And that's the same applies to the territorial disputes in the so-called line of action, actual control. I mean, there are a lot of disagreement along those lines, and no amount of finger pointing, thumping is not going to solve the problem. Now, as to taking aggressive action, both sides can take aggressive action. It's not going to solve the problem. I think that where there are disputes, both sides should sit calmly and then, of course, try to negotiate if they can. And if no negotiation is possible, agree to disagree. But otherwise, more border conflict is not in the best interest of either India or China, and that's been recognized by the top leaders of both countries. And that's why both top leaders want to scale down the kind of confrontation, not to scale up. Of course, you can make diplomatic gestures, objections, but this is one thing to do that is another taking provocative actions, especially in other areas which are governed by the United Nations Charter. And I rest my case.
What happens with the UN decision in favor of Manila with respect to the Philippines? Has China accepted that?
No, China has never been part of this.
So then why should any other nation respect what the UN Charter says if China does not respect what the UN says?
Oh, well, wait a minute. You're confusing the United Nations Charter with the tribunal. The tribunal is not recognized as has provisions requiring that the litigants that they have to be party to the same kind of proceedings. It's very different from the United Nations Charter itself, recognizing the sovereignty of countries.
Anand, ask him, does China, does the United Nations recognize South China Sea and the 9-dash line, which the Chinese are claiming and are belligerent, do not allow navigation, freedom of navigation?
Well, I'm not saying... Well, I'm not saying...
UN Charter?
Well, what I'm saying that is, of course, the South China Sea, the so-called 9-dash lines, is subject to a lot of disputes. And I think it's right and proper for other governments to state the case. But that line of argument cannot be applied to...
Why can't that line of argument be applied? This is sovereign territory of Bharat and China is laying claim. We should not argue. Sovereign territory of East Turkestan and it's been forcefully occupied. It's been branded new territory by the Chinese PLA. It's Xinjiang means new territory. That means it's not existing China. Inner Mongolia is not China, it's again forcibly occupied territory. Why shouldn't we highlight that and why shouldn't we ask those questions? And if China is making incursions into Nepal, nobody should ask questions. China can go wherever, the PLA can go wherever they want if they decide, oh, tomorrow I like this place, I'll take it. I'll rename this place and I'll take it. But no other nation should do so. Dr. Roger Liu, do you agree with this argument? That two leaders have said we don't want escalation, but PLA will continue to print maps. Two leaders say we don't want escalations, but they will continue to send soldiers into Indian territory in Galwan and then get their noses punched. Yes, Dr. Roger Liu, final word.
Well, this is how all these mechanisms between the border talks failed. The original idea to have the two leaders to talk together, Xi Jinping and Narendra Modi, is to avoid to bypass all these bureaucratic red tapes and to solve this issue. But the key idea that the key reason that this cannot be solved is that China actually doesn't care about India's sovereignty. So China has been using India as a convenient, target. Whatever happens, it will use as a target for its nationalism. So I think, going back to Minister Shankar words, well, China really need to respect seriously India's sovereignty and sovereign claims without playing little tricks like changing the names in Arunachal Pradesh.
It's very humbly, sir. Let's go quickly. Moving on, Dr. Shringla should join us. But here's just one submission as Dr. Shringla joins us, and I thank all our panelists, that we should continue to do what is right for us, not expect China to change its ways at all. This Map Adventurism, Harsh Shringla ji, namaste. Thank you very, very much for joining us, former Foreign Secretary with us. This Map Adventurism, sir, this tactics of the PLA, how do you see it?
Well, I think the PLA or the Chinese government has always resorted to tactics that are designed to give them an advantage in the, boundary and consolidating their objectives in that regard. I don't think we need to be unduly worried. We have always displayed a very firm attitude when it comes to Chinese attempts at transgressions of the boundary. You saw that in 2020, Chinese attempts at transgression were met very firmly. That was the same in 2017 at the Doklam. And Doklam was really the point at which we said, here is where we make a stand and you're not going to go any further. And I think that principle or that approach, the firm dealing of issues relating to foreign policy with nation-first approach that Prime Minister Modi has displayed, I think has really served our interests very well, because whether it is attempts at Ladakh or Sikkim or Arunachal or Uttarakhand, I think we have not allowed any such attempts to result in anything to our detriment. I think we have established a very firm line there, that while we have an approach that is designed to encourage good and peaceful and amicable relations with all of our neighbors and partners, we will not tolerate any attempts that would compromise our territorial sovereignty, integrity, or our security and defense preparedness. And from that point of view, I think this government has always followed, under Prime Minister Modi, a nation-first, India-first approach.
But Harshvardhan ji,
this is, as I said, held us in good stead.
Please explain to our viewers this cartographic adventurism, aggression. Diplomatically, what is the CCP's game plan?
From their perspective, they would, draw the map the way they see it. If they obviously have a claim, even though it's specious and extremely, a far-fetched claim, the fact of the matter is they're trying to show that as their territory. Their attempts to rename places, their attempts to, as you say, cartographic aggression, is something that I think we will have to be resolute on. As far as we are concerned, and I quote Foreign Minister Shankar here, when he said, just because you name your, my house with your names, it doesn't mean it becomes yours. In other words, just by naming these territories, you don't gain those territories. These parts of Arunachal Pradesh have been a part of India, are a part of India, and will be part of India. Well, there will be no compromise on our territorial integrity whatsoever, irrespective of such shenanigans on the part of China. And I have to say that it is not a new exercise. They have been doing this in the fourth such attempt. There have been other attempts in many other areas. I think what you need is an absolute firm resolve. You need to hold your ground. You need to be resolute, and I don't think you need to be unduly concerned. I mean, what is important is that your territory remains yours, and there is no way we are going to compromise.
But let me ask you this. Why shouldn't we resort to the similar cartographic strategy? Why shouldn't we show Inner Mongolia, the Xinjiang or the New Territory region and Tibet separately? And what is the Middle China separately?
You see, I mean, our maps are based on our, let's say, depiction of the boundary. And those depictions are based either on our claim or, where internationally there is a demarcation, then you follow that national line. Where there is no demarcation, then you follow a line which is in accordance with your historical and, legal claims. So whether it is in the Ladakh sector or whether it is in Arunachal, etc., you're drawing the map as it is, as you see it. I don't think we need to indulge in cartographic aggression of that nature as long as we are clear about what represents our territory and what is, for example, POK. Pakistan occupied Kashmir is depicted as part of India, which correctly is. And even though we may not have de facto control, but de jure it is part of India, so you depict it. But for us to, start depicting or rechanging the boundaries based on a response to someone else's, I would say, somewhat immature attempts at securing their interests in a way that is, I would say, non-productive or counterproductive.
There is
not something that we need to get in.
But Harshvardhan ji, we have here at News 18 only depicted, and here on our maps, they depicted Xinjiang separately, Tibet separately, Inner Mongolia separately, and it's a cartographical rejection of the entire One China policy, because these are all disputed territories whose inhabitants claim that this is nothing but forcible occupation and this is not China.
Well, that is a policy decision, and that is a decision that we have to think through carefully. There are countries, we are not the only country in the world that recognizes a one China policy. I think there are majority of countries in the world recognize that. There are historical basis, etc. But nothing, status quo is not, doesn't go forever and doesn't last. There are always extenuating circumstances, and I think it's a decision that government has to take, a considered decision.
So from cartographic adventurism of the CCP to some territorial misadventures of erstwhile former leaders of Bharat. So Arunachal Pradesh to Kachativu, let's just switch focus. Documents that have come to light of what had happened back in 1974. How would you analyze the entire turn of events?
Well, let me take up what you mentioned in terms of, the comments made by the Prime Minister and the External Affairs Minister, and the comments made by the opposition in terms of the Parliament questions and responses thereof. Now, there is an official approach and there is a political approach. Officially, when you have a question in Parliament, you provide the facts. The facts are that, there was a delimitation exercise in which Kachativu became a part of Sri Lanka in 1974. And there was a subsequent 1976 agreement in which fishing rights were also deprived. I mean, our fishermen are deprived of those fishing rights in the 76 agreement.
Yes.
So, in response to a Parliament question, you're responding on factual basis. That is what you're supposed to do. But there is a political imperative that has come out based on the RTI. And I suspect, having dealt with Sri Lanka extensively as Joint Secretary in the neighborhood,
right,
and this issue of Kachativu, and I've seen it at close quarters, both in terms of what we did with the Supreme Court and our interactions with the Tamil Nadu government, etc., and of course the Sri Lankan side.
Ji.
I can say that, it's in many senses, I think the documentation which is out in the public domain is very timely. Public needs to know on what basis their leaders and those that they have had reposed confidence in, what decisions they've taken, how they've taken those decisions, what is behind those decisions. And I think it is only correct that this point has been brought out. And keep in mind, it is 50 years since the incident. So many classified documents are declassified after 50 years.
Right.
So it's correct that such documents are out in the public domain. What does it bring out very clear? One, it brings out the fact that during British times, even though when the British government tried to separate the Indian dominion with their Ceylon dominion. At that time, Sri Lanka or Ceylon then made a claim for Kachati. The British government took the view that no, that was untenable and kept it as part of British India. Subsequently, if you noticed, there were various opinions, which even post-independence, which said that Kachativu, we had a very strong case to keep it. Yet, the government of Indira Gandhi, then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and the Congress insisted on going ahead and making Kachativu part of Sri Lanka. Now, you may say that it's only a small, piece of territory, but with that comes fishing rights.
Yes.
With that comes an entire area that you can fish. I mean, after all, Kachativu is only 12 kilometers off the coast of, coastline of Tamil Nadu, Ramanathapuram. And historically, the Zamindar, the Raja of Ramanathapuram, collected land revenue from Kachativu. He has the tax records. And that's what led the British to also hesitate in giving Kachativu to the Sri Lankan or British Ceylon. So, for a sovereign government to go and then give Kachativu to Sri Lanka under that, I would say, boundary agreement was not only an incorrect step, but I think has in many senses it is a breach of faith of the public. And that what makes it more aggravated is the fact that the records, if you see the records of which have been now released in the public domain, indicate that DMK patriarch, Mr. Karunanidhi, was briefed in great detail and he informally concurred to that agreement and those arrangements, knowing fully well the implications of Kachativu going to Sri Lanka. It has deprived fishermen of Tamil Nadu, of India, the right to fish in very lucrative waters. It has actually been the basis of many problems that we have had with Sri Lanka, because over a period of 10 years, some 6,000 odd fishermen of ours and over 1,000 boats have been impounded by the Sri Lankan authorities. I think it has made it difficult for our fishermen to undertake their livelihoods. And it is clearly something that really government should have thought of. And in today's context, had Prime Minister Modi been there and had he been following foreign policy, I can assure you this would never happen. Because for Prime Minister Modi, it is Bharat first, India first. It is the people of our country first, and then
But Mr. Shringla,
in those days, I think there were other considerations, and I don't know what those considerations were. But there is when it comes to foreign policy, I think there cannot be any consideration other than national interest. And clearly, national interest in this case has been compromised. That means your interests of your citizens have been clearly compromised, as history has revealed to us over a period of time. And that this decision, unfortunately, all of us who dealt with it at that time felt that it appeared to be one that lacked either legal or historical basis for us to take that decision to give that area to Sri Lanka. But at the same time, I think, it has had consequences that were totally avoidable. And
but
I think there's a lot that both the Congress Party and the
till
DMK
these
have
documents
to explain.
You're saying Congress and DMK are to blame, but till these documents came out, 21 letters, if my memory serves me right, multiple letters have been written by M.K. Stalin, Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. One as recently as when Ranil Wickremesinghe came to Bharat, where he says that the state government was kept in the dark and that Bharat should reclaim Kachativu because Tamil Nadu was not party to this transfer.
This is what I was saying, that the DMK has been very aggressive about the issue of fishermen's rights, about Kachativu belonging to India. They've gone to court, they've implemented the Supreme Court, the Tamil Nadu government has been implemented in it. But at the end of the day, we are dealing with double standards, because this is a party that knew all along that they had compromised on these interests. So the point is that on one hand you wink and there's a wink and a nod, and on the other hand you take up an issue as though it is an issue that is in the interests of your sort of electorate and your citizens. And I think this is today what we are really doing is in the interest of transparency, in the interest of true democracy. Prime Minister Modi has raised this issue. Dr. Shankar has raised this issue. Annamalai ji has raised this issue. And I think this issue needs to be in the public domain. Our people need to know. I think I've always maintained, as a former foreign service officer, that it is important that decisions taken in the foreign and security domain are also made available to the public, so they know on what basis leaderships have taken decisions on their behalf.
Right.
And those days have gone in which you took decisions on specious grounds. I mean, I heard someone saying that this was to facilitate the return of Indian origin Tamils back to India.
Correct.
I mean, we have been fighting all along for Indian origin Tamils to be nationalized. Those who want to stay should be allowed to stay. But if those who want to return can return, who is stopping you from returning? Why is that a reason to keep Kachatibu or give Kachatibu to Sri Lanka? So this doesn't make sense at all. And I think the fact that Sri Lanka is 12 nautical miles off the coast of India, much closer to India than Sri Lanka, I think doesn't actually, I mean, there was absolutely no reason for our past, Congress leadership to have.
The distortion aspect is also that it was a Sirimau Shastri arrangement, Harshvardhanji, in terms of the repatriation of Tamils, 6 lakh Tamils, and not the Indira Gandhi government. But the aspect is also, why talk about it today? Because Kachativu is gone. We are not going to get back that island in any case unless we fight a war with Sri Lanka. It's not going to happen. We don't want to do that. There's no situation. So why bring up this issue and raise this issue now?
No, as I said, I've always maintained that, 50 years down the line, when documents have been declassified, they're available in the public domain, public has the right to know. And what Annamalai has done by asking for RTI is basically putting into the public domain what should be there. And the Prime Minister has only reinforced the facts that emerge from this document. So there is no harm in bringing this out in the public domain. And as I said, these are actually issues that should become a part of the public discourse, because these are the issues on which people need to take a verdict. I mean, people of Tamil Nadu should say that despite crying horse on this issue, the DMK is actually an accessory to this issue. They've acquiesced in the handing over Kachativu to Sri Lanka. The Congress party has been, I would say instrumentally behind it, but the DMK has been a part of that decision.
No.
So I think that is very important, and also important is the fact that even for the future, this is a salutary lesson that any such issues you need to have a certain level of public buy-in. You can't take decisions which are based on considerations, and there were considerations, and we should know. There's nothing on the record, even classified documents I don't think show what is the thinking.
The classified documents say that there was domestic compulsions and also external compulsions that favored an expeditious settlement. It was pointing to some oil reserves that we may have had there, and of course the external compulsions being the pro-China lobby in Sri Lanka.
If Kachativu was handed over to Sri Lanka on considerations of oil, then where is that quid pro quo in the last 50 years? I mean, there is no trace of any quid pro quo on those considerations. And today it becomes a totally different issue, because these are sovereign, as per the agreement, these are sovereign waters of Sri Lanka. They can give it out to various companies, and I think this is also a matter of serious security concern, because at the end of the day, Kachativu is, as I said, 12 nautical miles from.
Sir, I'm actually reading from this document. We've got the excerpt of the documents that have been released. Record of talks held in Madras with Sri M. Karunanidhi, Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, on the 19th of June 1974. And page number 6 here, point number 10. And I'm reading, Foreign Secretary pointed out to certain domestic and external compulsions favouring an expeditious settlement. Among the domestic compulsions, Foreign Secretary stated in strictest confidence that oil structures are reported to have been located in the area, and that at present the Sri Lanka side is presumably not aware of this. If settlement is delayed and knowledge about oil strike becomes available, settlement will become intractable. Among the external compulsions, Foreign Secretary mentioned persistent threat from Sri Lanka to begin exercise jurisdiction. In view of extensive drilling operations, they have already begun in the Gulf of Mannar area.
So essentially, you're handing over an area to ensure that your, security interests are protected. I think it should have been the other way around. You should have taken the area to ensure your security interests are protected, because security interests are not short term. They're medium term and long term. 50 years down the line, you've left us with a situation where your security interests are compromised.
So the external factor also says Foreign Secretary pointed to existence of a very strong pro-Chinese lobby in Sri Lanka, which is eager to take advantage of any misunderstanding between Bharat and Sri Lanka, and which may be urging them to refer to the dispute to arbitration or even go to the World Court to embarrass India.
tell me how giving Kachativu to Sri Lanka has, in some senses, alleviated that concern 50 years down the line, then and now, I would be greatly enlightened. I mean, how is this argument, how does this hold water? At that time, you were concerned that foreign interests were coming in, so you must give Kachativu to Sri Lanka. And today, 50 years down the line, I mean, we have seen no evidence of all that. And today, 50 years down the line, that becomes a reality for the reasons that are absolutely opposite to what actions you've taken in 1974, 1976. But that other question of yours, basically on fishing rights, and what can we do? The point is that I think External Affairs Minister Dr. Shankar has made a very valid point that we can look at exploring in our discussions with the Sri Lankan side fishing rights to our fishermen in and around Kachativu. That is something that he's spoken about. And I think that's a good way to go about it. Agreements are agreements, and agreements that relate to boundaries and relate to territorial integrity of states are those that are sort of vested in many senses in the United Nations. They are ratified. But you can actually try and address some of the issues given a good relationship, sort of a mutual framework of cooperation and collaboration, something that is possible.
But here is the
concern. So he's spoken about that,
and
I think that seems to be...
Harshvardhanji, here is the concern. There is a block C1 that the Sri Lankans are now auctioning. This block would have been part of Bharat had Kachativu not been ceded. These blocks are now being auctioned. And this is all in the Delft Island and the Kachativu region. And there are Chinese companies that are bidding for these. It may go to certain Chinese power companies and other agencies, clearly state-backed. Is that a huge security concern for us now?
You see, there's a director of the historical division in the Ministry of External Affairs. The historical division dealt with all the treaties and legal matters, boundary issues. That is why the director of the historical division, Basu, accompanied Foreign Secretary Keval Singh to Sri Lanka, to Tamil Nadu to brief Karnanidhi ji. There is another director called A.S. Bhasin, Avtar Singh Bhasin, who has written a very number of books on the border. And he has said Nehru was preoccupied. He was obsessed with global peace. And to the extent that he was willing to compromise national interests in order to achieve the interests of global peace. And contrasted it today. I mean, we are contributing. Prime Minister Modi's contribution to global peace has been far more effective and manifest in today's context. Yet his policy has always been Bharat first, India first, Indian citizens before any others. So we have never compromised on our national interests and our security while working with the rest of the world and bringing about global order.
Right.
So I think a lot of decisions, whether it is a question of taking Jammu and Kashmir to the UN and UN Security Council, whether it's a question of having lost undue amount of land in the Ladakh and Jammu and Kashmir sectors, whether it is a question of Kachativu, these are issues that are historical legacies today that our foreign policy has to deal with. But these are mistakes of the past. And it's important for people to start asking these questions that why did we make those mistakes? What is it in those leaderships that failed us? Why is it that today under Prime Minister Modi, we are actually addressing these issues? We are trying to mitigate some of these issues. We are today in a situation where India is considered and Prime Minister Modi is considered as the Vishwa Guru, a Vishwa Mitra. We are a friend to a vast part of the world, but we are not going to compromise on our basic core interests and our integrity. So that is the policy, and everybody is aware of that policy. And I think that is what is something that people in our public also need to keep in mind, that there is a huge contrast between foreign policy conducted in the past and today's foreign policy under a very, very different leadership that believes in a new India and believes in the people of India.
Right. Thank you, Harshvardhan Shringla ji, for speaking with us and for putting matters into perspective. Always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you, sir. Namaste. We'll take a very short break here on The Right Stand. Stay with us.
Co-powered by.
Let's take a look at what actually the 2015 RTI reveals on the Kachativu island that has been cited by the Congress party. Now, it states that 1974 agreement did not involve either acquiring or ceding of territory This is what the 2015 RTI reveals, the territory that belongs to India, since the area in question had never been demarcated. So this is what 2015 RTI reveals, that the area was never demarcated, and under the agreements, the island of Kachchathif is on the Sri Lankan side of the water of the India-Sri Lanka International Maritime Boundary Line. This is what was there in the 2015 RTI, which has now been cited by the Congress party while hitting back at the centre over the allegations on Kachchathif. Pallavi continues. Pallavi and Aman continue to stay with us. Pallavi, now coming to you. The claim that is coming in from the Congress party is that there are discrepancies in the 2015 RTI report and the 2024 RTI report. And they have even questioned that, is that because the elections are near?
Absolutely. In fact, the whole of yesterday, the Congress party, Anjali, has been consistently making the point that, first of all, which I just mentioned, if like when the Prime Minister spoke about it for the first time in Lok Sabha in 2023, why is it that the government is now raking this up issue? They had enough of time because they are in power, clearly, and they could have done something about it, because the BJP has always claimed to, and the government has always claimed to have a very robust foreign policy. And, you know, it could have been very easily done. And why was it not done? Second, I mean, a leader after leader has gone on to say that this is just a selective usage of the RTI report. Whatever side suits the BJP narrative, they pick it up and they try to create a narrative. They're trying to create a rift between the DMK and the Congress. Like, more than a Congress, which is, of course, a national level party and also has stakes in Tamil Nadu, DMK is a Tamil Nadu based party. That's an emotive factor, because Tamil versus Tamil, along with Sri Lanka, is always had that very deep emotional connect for generations, as we were talking about, Anjali. So what is the BJP trying to do politically? Stoke and provoke the DMK to ask them this question: look, isn't the Congress becoming a liability for you? How are you going to respond to that? And when we are going to see the election dates nearing in Tamil Nadu, of course the BJP is going to build up the tempo on this. That's what they are doing vis-a-vis the DMK. But moving beyond that at the national level, as I just pointed out, of course they are going to push the narrative that the Congress has always been against nationalism. 2019 Lok Sabha elections, Pulwama, Balakot airstrike, something which the BJP has never allowed the Congress to forget. And that's the point which Congress has been saying. That Antigvijay Singh, I remember, Udit Raj, all of them would say, let elections come. BJP will find out an agenda and they're going to push it and they're going to try and play the nationalism card. That's exactly what the Congress is now accusing the BJP of.
All right, Pallavi, please stay with us. Aman, now coming to you, in yesterday's press conference that was held by External Affairs Minister S. Shankar, he said that it was the Congress that gave away the island, but it was the DMK that hid it. In fact, the 2024 RTI also mentions that Karunanidhi was very well taken into confidence, and he took this decision to not make any public stand for obvious political reasons. So what could have been these obvious political reasons?
Well, Anjali, that is the real damaging part for the DMK here. You know, DMK always has taken a public stand that it did not want this island to be given away to Sri Lanka. That's been the DMK's consistent stand. It has been writing to the centre to, in fact, get back the island. But now what has transpired through this RTI, the new revelation which has come is that in 1974, Indira Gandhi had sent the then Foreign Secretary, Mr. Keval Singh, to Chennai to meet Mr. M. Karunanidhi, who was then the DMK chief as well as the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. The Chief Minister was briefed about the entire suggested proposal that, to hand over this island to Sri Lanka and settle this dispute as a bilateral measure. Mr. M. Karunanidhi said he was in
क्या लगता है सर आपको बीजेपी सक्सेसफुली ओल्ड मैसूर में इनरोड्स कर पाया है?
सिर्फ ओल्ड मैसूर नहीं, हम पूरे कर्नाटक की सभी 28 सीटें भारतीय जनता पार्टी जेडीएस गठबंधन जीतेगा। पूरी कर्नाटक की जनता मोदी जी को तीसरी बार प्रधानमंत्री देखना चाहती है। आप ये जन सैलाब दिखाइए, जो जन सैलाब आज उमड़ा है वो ही बताता है कि पूरा कर्नाटक मोदी जी का स्वागत करने के लिए तैयार है।
सर एक तरफ कांग्रेस अपनी गारंटियों के बारे में बात कर रहा है, पर मोदी की गारंटी ग्राउंड लेवल पर रेजोनेट हो रहा है। आपको क्राउड में काफी लोग बता रहे हैं कि सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट स्कीम्स का वो कितने बेनिफिशियरीज है। कितना बड़ा मुद्दा होगा सर ये इलेक्शन में?
देखिए, बहुत बड़ा मुद्दा बनने वाला है और मैं आपको बताता हूँ, मोदी जी ने करोड़ों लाभार्थियों को जो फायदा मिल दिया है वो जरूर इस बार मोदी जी को तीसरी बार चुनते।
सर, और मेरा आखिरी प्रश्न सर, कांग्रेस को केरला में एससीपीआई का सपोर्ट मिला है सर, ये क्या इंफर कर सकते हैं सर, ये एससीपीआई सपोर्टिंग कांग्रेस इन केरला सर?
देखिए, मुझे इसमें कोई आश्चर्य नहीं है। कांग्रेस आई वर्षों से सांप्रदायिक ताकतों का साथ लेकर देश विरोधी अभियानों का प्रच्छिन्न रूप से समर्थन कर रही है। एसडीपीआई का सपोर्ट लेने का मतलब ही होता है कि आप भारत की एकता और अखंडता में विश्वास नहीं करते।
सर, फाइनली साउथ इंडिया में, ओके, दैट वाज यूनियन मिनिस्टर Mr. Amit Shah saying that the guarantees of Prime Minister Narendra Modi is resonating with people. They will win all 28 seats in Karnataka.
Good evening, this is Brass Tax. I'm Zaka Jacob. The Kachetivu row is now escalating into a major political showdown between the BJP and the DMK. Now, one part of it is absolutely diplomatic, no question about it. One part of it is historic. But what if the entire purpose of this controversy was to show up the DMK politically? Now, for a party that claims to be the custodian of Dravidian ideology and Tamil values, it is very apparent from this RTI reply and in the conversations that Mr. Keval Singh, who was the then External Affairs Secretary, had with the then Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, Mr. Karunanidhi, that Mr. Karunanidhi did very little to stop the giving away of an island by the then Indira government to the Sri Lankans. Where was the Tamil pride in that? Also, the more real issue, which is of course the detention, the arrests and even the shooting of Indian fishermen, Tamil fishermen at the hands of Sri Lanka. If Kachetivu was not given away, is it possible to have stopped these atrocities?